Prologue. Welcome to hell. Typically, you don't dive into hell. You fall, get tricked, or, if you're like me, you get dragged into it. You start to panic. Everything's so dark, distorted and ugly. You fail to realize that the blinding light slicing through your eyes from above is actually the opening to your grave, where you're to simply reach up, grab it, and pull. You'd be free. There's even a door you can close to prevent yourself from falling or being dragged in again. But the door is glass, and the images and noises below you are hard to forget. If you stand above it and stamp your feet, you will fall through. If you were lucky enough to sidestep it when the door breaks, you'll be dragged in if you stand too close. It's that easy to return to that place, the one you fear you'll never escape from. That must be how the kidnapped feel, like they've been swallowed up by the world, taken to a different dimension behind soundproof glass, and no matter how loud they cry, no one will hear them. It's like you are beyond ordinary people now, marked and different, far off and away. Even returning to them physically can't make them understand you anymore. You've been gone for too long. They didn't see what you did, experience what you did. They will never understand the you that you are now. They don't know that the other you, the one they knew, is dead and is still in that hell by itself, screaming. It's difficult to explain to the uninitiated how a hell operates, what it looks like, feels like, smells like. It's hard to explain what it does to a soul. It's such an individualized process with only some commonalities between the forms. But most people don't have a glass door to hell. They don't know that it's that close. They don't feel it, they don't see it, they don't hear it. If they do sense it for just a moment, they shrug it off, ignore it, move on. You can't ignore it once you've been there. You'll always know that it's close and that it can swallow you again. I'm here to show you my hell. Most people call it childhood, and they look back on their own with a blissful sigh and a wish to return to that wonderful, imaginative, trusting time. I can tell you that anyone who has been through hell during their childhood has a very different idea of bliss. My story isn't particularly unique, but what makes anyone else's pain matter more than my own? And really, this is my message for you, so that you understand why I did and didn't do so much between us in the past. This doesn't excuse my behavior, or lack thereof, but I think it's time that you got to know my own personal hell, so that you can understand the shell that I left behind there, and how different I have become because of it. Now, hell's an experience. Just like any sized experience, it shapes you, your perceptions, your own body and soul. It helps form you. Remember, as we go through, that my pain is no more important and no less important than your pain. That my experiences are no less real and transformative than your own. But this is a big part of my story. It happened for so long. I let it influence so many things that not telling you this would be a major lie of omission that I just can't bear to do to you. Though that won't stop me from leading you along in my own sick way. You're most likely familiar with the traditional idea of a kidnapping pedophilic rapist. He's typically some type of ugly white man who doesn't take the time or effort to be appealing to women. So instead, he latches onto the dirty little frames of unsuspecting children, because somehow That's logical. He lives and operates his thieving ways in the 1970s with his stereotypical white wannabe hippie van with curtains drawn on every back window. To snag his young victims, he uses his trusty weapon, candy, to lure the innocents into his ugly van to be trapped with his ugly self so that he can touch and harm them as he wishes. He can drive them to a remote location and touch them there so that no one will hear them scream and plead and beg. No one, not even God, knows where the hell is for those children, those victims of an ugly man's twisted desires. Once done, and the toys are used and broken, the ugly white man kills the children bodily and dumps them, to be found bloated and decaying in a river or rotting in a hole with only their small, once plump hands sticking out as if to peg off a world that abandoned them. Or maybe they're just reaching for the surface, or for their mothers, or for a gentle hand to hold and help them up out of their suffering. But even if physical death didn't occur, those children died that day. Their souls were transferred to hell to be punished for the sins of their captor. The repercussions of such a journey may be swept under the rug by the children's family members who don't want to deal with or who just don't understand the changelings that were left behind. The changelings themselves now have been given the burdensome task of finding a way to become a living being, preferably something close to human. Just like that ugly 70s rapist who didn't deliver on his promises of candy for his young consorts, I will guide you one candy wrapper at a time to discover my personal hell so you can come find